also that when we talk about Dr. King and his legacy, I want everybody here to know this, because not everybody does, that when he died, he was working on a major project called the Poor People's March. Do you all know that? Not a lot of people know that. And this is what that march was about. What he said back then is truer today. What he said is, in a land of so much wealth, in a land that can spend so much money on the military, in a land that can give huge tax breaks to the rich, why are so many people living in poverty? And what his Poor People's March was about was to bring not just blacks, not just poor whites, not just Latinos, not just Native Americans, but all people together to go to Washington, D.C. and demand fundamental changes in our national priorities. That's what he was doing when he was killed. And that project of bringing poor people and working people together to fight for economic justice is exactly what this campaign is about. Let me say at the outset, let me be very, very clear with you and tell you what no other candidate for president will tell you. You know, that's the truth. Yeah, that's the truth. But here is an important part of that truth. And that part is that no president, not Bernie Sanders or anybody else, can effectively address the major economic crises facing this country alone. So what I need, this is what I need. Obviously, I need your help and support to win here in Alabama. And I need your help and support to win the Democratic nomination and to win the general election. But here's the big but. I will need your help the day after the election. Why do I say that? I'll tell you why I say this, and I'm telling you a truth that no other candidate will tell you. And that is that the powers that be in this country, Wall Street, corporate America, the large and wealthy campaign donors, the corporate media, they are so powerful that no president alone, no matter how well-intentioned, can bring about the changes that we need. And that is why we need a political revolution. The only way that we bring about real change is when millions of people begin to get involved and demand that Congress and Washington start representing the interests of ordinary Americans. So this campaign, and I appreciate Bernie, thank you. But it ain't Bernie, it is you, and you. I can't do it alone. I really cannot. We are in this together. Now, why am I running for president? Let me just tell you briefly. I'm running for president because despite the fact that we are better off today than we were 7 years ago, the truth is that for the last 40 years in this country, the great middle class, once the envy of the world, has been disappearing. Today in Alabama, today in Vermont, you got moms working, you got dads working, you got kids working, you got people doing 2 jobs, you got people doing 3 jobs, just to cobble together some income and some health care. Today in America, the the man worker in the middle of the economy is making $700 less in inflation adjusted for dollars than he made 41 years ago. That woman in the middle of the economy making $1,000 less than she made in 2007. So here's a radical idea. You guys ready for a radical idea? We are going to create an economy that works for the middle class, not for the billionaire class. And when you talk about the economy, I want you to hear this, because very few people will tell you the truth about this. Today, in terms of wealth, who owns what? Top 1/10 of 1%, not 1%, 1/10 of 1% owns almost as much wealth as the bottom 90%. Today, you got 20 people in this country who own more wealth than the bottom 50% of the American people. Today, you got one family, the Walton family of Walmart. You are familiar with Walmart. Now, this one family owns more wealth than the bottom 40% of the American people. Now, I know that in Alabama and all over this country you hear a lot about welfare, right? People taking advantage of the welfare system. Ain't that terrible? Well, let me tell you who the biggest welfare cheat in America is. It's the Walton family of Walmart. You know why? You know why? Because many of their workers are paid wages so low, they have to get Medicaid, they have to get food stamps, they have to get subsidized housing. In other words, the middle class of this country is providing welfare to the wealthiest family in this country. Doesn't make sense to me. So I've got a message for the Walton family. Get off of welfare, pay your workers a living wage.
Wait. Lay him down. No, I'm okay. Do you need some water? No. Are you sure? Yeah, my leg just fell asleep. Okay. My leg fell asleep. Okay.
Yeah,
I'm sitting down here.
That if you work 40 hours a week in
America, you don't need any water.
You should not be living in poverty. So we are going to tell the Walton family and every employer in America that we're going to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour. And the other thing we're going to do when we talk about fair wages is I hope that every man in this room will stand with the women and fight for pay equity for women. And when we talk about the economy, let's be honest and talk about unemployment. Official unemployment is 5%. Real unemployment, including those people who have given up looking for work or are working part-time, is 9.9%. And here's something that we almost never talk about, and that is youth unemployment. I asked some economists to study the issue for me, and listen to what they told me. What they said is for kids 17 to 20 who graduated high school, didn't drop out, graduated high school, if the kids were white, real unemployment, 33%. If they're Latino, 36%. If they are African American, 51%. Now, it seems to me that if anyone in this room does not see the connection between this outrageously high level of youth unemployment and the fact that we have more people in jail than any other country on earth, you would be mistaken. So here is another radical idea. You ready for radical idea number 2? What about having the federal government invest in education and jobs? In education and jobs for our kids, not jails and incarceration. You know, a lot of my Republican colleagues, they run all over the country, and they talk about family values. You ever hear them talking about family values? Well, they just love families, especially very wealthy families who can contribute to their campaigns. But you all know what they mean when they're talking about family values. What they are saying is that no woman in this arena tonight, no woman in Alabama or Vermont or America should have the right to control her own body. I disagree. That I will not shock anybody here when I suggest that a lot of politics in America deals with hypocrisy, right? You're all shocked when I tell you that. But I think some of my Republican friends have taken hypocrisy to an historically high level. You see, they go around the country, they say, we hate the government. We hate Social Security. We want to cut Social Security. We hate Medicare. We hate Medicaid. We hate the EPA. We hate federal education. We hate everything about the government. Oh, except for one thing. In a very highly difficult and personal decision that women have to make, they love the government getting involved in those lives. You met my wife, Jane, and you saw some of my grandchildren. You saw my son, Dave, and his wife, Liza. I got a lot more kids, a lot more grandchildren, but I didn't bring them all tonight. But we believe in family values. We believe very much that we've got to strengthen families in America. But our view on family values is very different than the Republican view. And our view, when I talk about family values, is that we have got to end the international embarrassment of the United States being the only major country on earth that does not guarantee paid family and medical leave. This is what it means. It means all over the world. By the way, not only in wealthy developed countries, but in many poor developing countries. Governments understand that when a mom has a baby, she has the right to stay home with that baby, get to know that baby, get to bond with that baby. Dad too. Not a radical idea. And all over the world, governments understand that when a kid gets sick, dad has the right to spend some time home with the kid or home with their parents. So when I talk about family values, I talk about passing legislation that will provide 3 months of paid family and medical leave. When we talk about the economy, when pollsters call up Americans and they say, well, what's on your mind? As often as not, the answer they get is people are worried about the economy and jobs. Now, why is that? Well, the answer is, as we can see in the stock market recently, it's a very volatile economy. If you are 55 years of age, you are worried that you can go to work tomorrow and your employer can say, Joe, thank you for working for us for 30 years, but we got to lay you off and we're going to be hiring somebody half your age and half your wages. That's true. That happens every day. And if you are a college graduate, maybe you've gone deeply into debt to get a college degree. Looks like we got 1 or 2 of those folks here. What many college graduates are finding is that it is hard to find work commensurate with their education. And as I mentioned a moment ago, if you're just a high school graduate, it is pretty hard to find any work at any wage. So it's